Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Pathfinder, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship had been traveling for 3 months since leaving Earth's solar system. This was humanity's first journey beyond their home worlds, and Jake felt the weight of history on his shoulders. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the sensors," said Lieutenant Sam Parker from the communications station. His voice was tight with excitement and worry. Jake walked over to look at the readings. The screen showed several large objects, moving toward them at incredible speed. These were not asteroids or space debris. They moved with purpose and intelligence. "Dr. Carter, please come to the bridge," Jake called over the ship's communication system. Within minutes, Dr. Lisa Carter arrived. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though until now that had been purely theoretical work. "What do you think, Doctor?" Jake asked, pointing to the sensor readings. Lisa studied the data carefully. Her heart was beating fast. "Captain, these appear to be artificial constructs, ships of some kind. We may be looking at our first contact with alien intelligence." The bridge became very quiet. Every crew member understood what this meant. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. "Sir, they're trying to communicate with us," reported Sam Parker. "I'm receiving signals on multiple frequencies. It's definitely not random noise." "Can you decode it?" Jake asked. "Working on it, sir. The computer is trying to find patterns." Sam's fingers moved quickly over his controls. "Captain, I think they're using mathematical sequences. Basic stuff like prime numbers and geometric progressions." Dr. Carter moved to help Sam with the translation work. "This is how we always theorized first contact would happen. Mathematics is universal. Any intelligent species would understand these concepts." Over the next hour, they established basic communication. The alien ships confirmed they were peaceful and requested permission to approach. Jake granted it, though he kept his ship's weapons ready. Not that human weapons would likely be effective against technology advanced enough for interstellar travel. The alien ship that came alongside the Pathfinder was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It was 3 times larger than Jake's vessel and seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that shifted colors in the starlight. No obvious weapons were visible, but Jake knew that meant nothing. "Captain Morrison," came a voice over the communication system. The translator had learned enough to convert the alien language into English. "I am Ambassador Kethrall of the Galactic Federation. We welcome you to the greater galaxy." Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment that would change everything for humanity. "Ambassador Kethrall, I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing Earth and the human species. We are honored to meet you." "The honor is ours, Captain. Your species has achieved faster than light travel. This is a significant milestone. We would like to invite you to learn about the Galactic Federation and perhaps join our community of peaceful worlds." Dr. Carter was writing notes as fast as she could. A galactic federation of multiple species was beyond even their wildest hopes. "Ambassador," she said, "how many species are part of your federation?" "Currently, we have 847 member species, Dr. Carter. We have maintained peace and cooperation for over 50,000 of your years." The number was staggering. Jake tried to imagine hundreds of different alien species all working together. "That's remarkable, Ambassador. How do you maintain peace among so many different peoples? We have learned that violence and conflict bring only suffering. All member species have evolved beyond such primitive responses. We solve our differences through meditation, discussion, and mutual understanding." Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. This sounded almost too good to be true. "We would like to learn more about your species," continued Ambassador Kethrall. "Perhaps you could share some information about your world and your people?" Dr. Carter had prepared for this possibility. She activated a data transmission containing basic information about Earth, human biology, and human culture. However, she had included human history as well, thinking it would show how humanity had grown and developed over time. The transmission took several minutes to complete. During that time, Jake noticed that more alien ships had arrived. They seemed to be keeping their distance, but their presence was unmistakable. When the data transfer finished, there was a long silence from the alien ship. Jake was beginning to worry when Ambassador Kethrall finally spoke again. "Captain Morrison, we have reviewed your historical data. We are quite concerned about what we have discovered." "What concerns you, Ambassador?" Jake asked, though he had a sinking feeling he knew what was coming. "Your species appears to have been in a state of constant warfare for your entire recorded history. We see conflicts ranging from small tribal disputes to global wars involving millions of casualties. This is very troubling." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Ambassador, you must understand that those conflicts are in our past. Humanity has learned from its mistakes. We've had relative peace for over a century now. Dr. Carter, even your recent history shows military conflicts. Your own captain is a military officer. Your ship carries weapons. These are not the characteristics of a peaceful species." Jake felt his hope for easy integration slipping away. "Ambassador, we carry weapons for protection, not aggression. Captain Morrison's military background gives him the experience to lead exploration missions safely. Captain, we must classify your world as what we call a death world. Planets that produce species capable of organized violence are extremely rare. In 50,000 years, we have encountered only 12 such worlds. What happened to the other 11? Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Most were quarantined to prevent their violent tendencies from spreading. 3 were successfully integrated after extensive rehabilitation programs lasting several thousand years. Dr. Carter felt desperate. "Ambassador, surely you can see that humans are capable of growth and change. We've made tremendous progress in reducing violence and increasing cooperation." There was another long pause. Jake could hear quiet conversations in alien languages coming from the other ship. Finally, Ambassador Kethrall spoke again. "We will convene an emergency session of the Federation Council to discuss your species. In the meantime, you will be permitted to travel to our capital world of New Geneva for evaluation. However, you must understand that your weapons will be disabled, and you will be under constant supervision." Jake wanted to refuse, but he knew this might be humanity's only chance to join the galactic community. "We accept your terms, Ambassador." "Very well, please follow our ships. The journey will take several days. We suggest you use this time to prepare arguments for why your species should be trusted with membership in our peaceful federation." As the alien ships began moving toward their destination, Jake turned to Dr. Carter. "Doctor, I hope you have some good ideas about how to convince them we're not the monsters they think we are." Lisa looked out at the alien ships surrounding them. "Captain, I'm beginning to wonder if being peaceful for 50,000 years has made them forget why sometimes you need to be ready for war." 6 months had passed since the humans arrived at New Geneva, the capital world of the Galactic Federation. Dr. Ben Walsh walked through the crystal gardens of the diplomatic quarter, still amazed by what he saw every day. The city was beautiful, beyond anything on Earth, with towers that seemed to grow from the ground like living trees and transportation systems that moved silently through the air. But something bothered Ben about this perfect world. In all his time here, he had never seen an argument, never witnessed a disagreement that lasted more than a few minutes. Even minor problems were solved so quickly and quietly that he sometimes wondered if they had been problems at all. "Dr. Walsh," called a gentle voice behind him. He turned to see Zixandra approaching. She was one of the younger Federation citizens he had befriended, a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and large, kind eyes. Her species could read emotions and thoughts, which had made their first meetings awkward for Ben. "Hello, Zixandra. How are you today?" Ben asked. "I am well, thank you. I am well. I wanted to ask you about something I sensed from the human delegation yesterday. During the council meeting, I felt strong emotions from Captain Rodriguez. Anger, frustration, something like what you call impatience. These feelings were very intense. Is she unwell?" Ben sighed. Captain Maya Rodriguez had been struggling with Federation protocols for months. As a former military pilot, she was used to making quick decisions and taking action. The Federation's way of discussing every minor issue for hours was driving her crazy. "She's not sick, Zixandra. She's just frustrated with how slowly things move here. In human culture, when we see a problem, we want to fix it right away. Zixandra looked confused. But hasty action leads to mistakes. It is better to consider all possibilities, consult with others, and find the path that creates the least disruption. Sometimes, Ben said carefully, the best action is fast action. Sometimes waiting makes problems worse. This concept clearly troubled Zixandra. Ben could see her struggling to understand it. For her people, and apparently for all Federation species, patience and careful consideration were the highest virtues. Later that day, Ben met with Captain Rodriguez at the human quarters. She was pacing back and forth, clearly agitated. Ben, I can't take much more of this, Maya said. Yesterday there was a minor accident at the spaceport. A cargo container fell and blocked one of the main walkways. Do you know how long it took them to move it? How long? Ben asked. 4 hours. 4 hours to move one container. They had to form a committee, discuss the best approach, file proper reports, and get approval from 3 different departments. Meanwhile, thousands of people had to walk around it. Ben nodded. He had seen similar situations. What would humans have done? We would have grabbed some people, lifted the damn thing, and moved it. 5 minutes, problem solved. But here they acted like moving a box without proper authorization might cause the end of civilization. Maybe, Ben said slowly. That's exactly what they're afraid of. Maya stopped pacing and looked at him. What do you mean? I've been studying their history, or what little they'll share with me. This peaceful society didn't happen naturally. It was created deliberately, probably in response to something terrible. Before Maya could respond, Lieutenant Sam Parker rushed into the room. His face was pale with excitement. Captain Dr. Walsh, you need to see this. I've been working with the Federation databases and I found something they don't want us to know about. Sam activated a portable display unit. It showed images of ancient ruins on a dead planet. The structures were massive and clearly built for war. Weapon installations, fortified positions, and what looked like the remains of a great battle. Where is this? Maya asked. A system about 50 light years from here. The planet is officially listed as uninhabitable due to natural disasters, but these ruins tell a different story. This world was destroyed by warfare, and not very long ago in galactic terms. Ben studied the images carefully. How did you find this? I was researching Federation expansion patterns when I noticed something odd. There are huge areas of space that they avoid completely. When I asked about them, I got vague answers about unsuitable conditions or natural hazards. But the star charts show these areas should be perfectly safe. Maya was examining the tactical aspects of the ruins. Her military training helped her understand what she was seeing. These aren't primitive weapons. This is advanced technology, possibly more advanced than what the Federation uses now. That's what worries me, Sam said. If the Federation had this level of military technology in the past, what made them give it up? Ben was putting pieces together in his mind. What if their peaceful nature isn't evolution? What if it's a deliberate choice made after some terrible war? You mean like trauma? Maya asked. Exactly. Sometimes when people experience something horrible, they go to extremes to make sure it never happens again. Maybe the Federation experienced something so bad that they decided any capacity for violence was too dangerous. Sam pulled up more data. I found references to something called the Great Silence in some of the older records. It seems to refer to a period about 50,000 years ago when many advanced civilizations simply disappeared from galactic records. Disappeared how? Maya asked. That's the thing. Nobody talks about it. Whenever I ask Federation citizens about this time period, they change the subject or claim they don't know anything about it. Ben felt a chill. What if something happened 50,000 years ago that was so terrible that the survivors decided to erase all memory of it? And what if, Maya added, whatever caused that disaster is still out there? Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the building. It was not loud or harsh like human alarms, but a gentle, musical tone that somehow conveyed urgency. Zixandra's voice came over the communication system. All humans, please report to the council chambers immediately. There has been an incident requiring your presence. The three humans looked at each other with concern. In 6 months, nothing requiring immediate human attention had ever happened. They hurried to the council chambers, where they found the Federation leadership in what passed for distress among their species. Council Prime Ethmori, the elderly, gaseous being who oversaw human integration, was flickering with unusual colors. "Humans," Ethmori said, his voice more serious than they had ever heard it. "We have received disturbing reports from our outer colonies. Several worlds have lost contact with the central government." "What kind of contact loss?" Maya asked, her military instincts immediately engaged. Complete silence. "Our ships sent to investigate have also failed to report back." Ben felt his stomach drop. "How many worlds?" 17 so far, across 3 different sectors. Sam was already thinking tactically. "Are these worlds connected in any way? Trade routes, shared resources, anything?" The Federation Council members exchanged what Ben had learned to recognize as their version of worried glances. "They are all located in regions we had recently begun to explore and colonize," admitted Ethmori. "Areas that had been avoided for many thousands of years." Maya stepped forward. "You mean the areas you told us were uninhabitable?" The silence that followed was the loudest sound Ben had ever heard in the peaceful halls of New Geneva. Finally, Ethmori spoke again. "Humans, we may have made a terrible mistake. We may have awakened something that should have remained sleeping." Ben looked at his companions and saw his own fear reflected in their faces. The Federation's perfect peace was about to be tested, and he had a feeling they were completely unprepared for what was coming. Professor Kate Sullivan crouched among the ancient ruins, carefully brushing dust from a carved stone tablet. The dead world around her was silent, except for the hum of environmental suits keeping her team alive. This planet had no atmosphere left, no signs of life, only the massive remains of what had once been a great civilization. "Kate, you need to see this," called Dr. Ryan Cooper from across the excavation site. His voice crackled through the communication system in her helmet. Kate made her way carefully across the rubble-strewn ground. Ryan was standing next to what appeared to be a large metal structure, partially buried but still intact after thousands of years. "What is it?" Kate asked. "I think it's a weapon," Ryan said quietly. "But not like anything in the current Federation databases. This technology is far more advanced than what they use now." Kate examined the device carefully. Even covered in dust and age, she could see the craftsmanship was incredible. The metal seemed to shift and flow like liquid, yet remained solid to the touch. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly when her scanner approached them. "Professor Sullivan," came another voice through their communication system. It was Archivist Morden, one of the few Federation citizens willing to help with their secret investigation. His species looked like tall, thin trees with multiple arms, and he was very old, even by Federation standards. "Yes, Morden," Kate replied. "I have found something in the central structure. You must come quickly, but bring only Dr. Cooper. What I have discovered is too dangerous for the others to know." Kate and Ryan exchanged worried glances. Morden had been nervous about this expedition from the beginning, constantly looking over his shoulder as if afraid of being discovered. For him to say something was too dangerous meant it was serious indeed. They found Morden in what had once been a grand chamber deep underground. The walls were covered with images and writing in multiple languages, some of which Kate recognized as belonging to current Federation species. "Morden, what is this place?" Kate asked. "It is a war room," Morden said, his voice heavy with sadness. "From the time we do not speak of. The time of the Great Devouring." Ryan was scanning the walls with his instruments. "These tactical displays show fleet movements across the entire galaxy. This wasn't a small conflict. This was total war on a scale I can barely imagine." Kate was studying the written records. Thanks to the Federation's translation technology, she could understand most of what she was reading. What she found made her blood run cold. "Morden, these records talk about something called the Devourers. What were they?" The old archivist was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. They were death itself, Professor. Beings that consumed entire worlds, turning all life into part of their collective consciousness. They could not be reasoned with, could not be negotiated with. They existed only to consume and grow. How were they stopped? Ryan asked. They were not stopped, Morden replied. They simply disappeared. One day they were conquering entire sectors, and the next day they were gone. We never understood why. Kate continued reading the ancient records. According to this, the war lasted over 3,000 years. Billions died. Entire species were wiped out. Yes, Morden confirmed. After it ended, the survivors made a pact. Never again would we allow violence to exist in our society. We changed ourselves, bred out our aggressive instincts, created laws and customs that made conflict impossible. We thought we had learned the ultimate lesson. Ryan was examining what appeared to be a strategic map. But if the Devourers just disappeared, what guarantee is there that they won't come back? There is none, Morden admitted. That is why this knowledge was forbidden. The Council believes that even thinking about such things might somehow bring them back. Kate felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold, dead world around them. Morden, the worlds that have been going silent in the outer sectors, are they in the same regions where Devourer activity was last recorded? The archivist's silence was answer enough. We have to tell the Federation Council, Ryan said. They will not listen, Morden replied sadly. They cannot listen. Their minds are not capable of processing such information anymore. 50,000 years of enforced pacifism has made them unable to even think about warfare. Kate was beginning to understand the full scope of the problem. So when the real threat returns, they'll be completely helpless? Worse than helpless, Morden said. They will be unable to even recognize what is happening until it is too late. Ryan's scanner began beeping urgently. He looked at the readings with growing alarm. Kate, I'm detecting energy signatures similar to what we found in the weapon upstairs. But these readings are coming from space. From space? Kate asked. Not just from space. From multiple points around the system. And they're getting stronger. Kate grabbed her communicator. Team leader to all stations. Everyone back to the ship immediately. Emergency evacuation. As they ran through the ancient ruins toward their vessel, Kate's mind was racing. The evidence was clear. The Devourers hadn't been destroyed 50,000 years ago. They had gone dormant, hibernating in the empty regions of space that the Federation had been careful to avoid. But now, with the Federation expanding into those forbidden areas, something had woken them up. Their ship lifted off just as the first energy signatures appeared on their sensors. Kate watched through the viewport as massive shapes began to emerge from what had seemed like empty space. Ships, if they could be called that, larger than anything in the Federation fleet. Morden, Kate said urgently, how do we fight something that an entire galaxy couldn't defeat? The old archivist looked at her with what she had learned to recognize as his species' expression of deep sadness. Professor, we do not fight them. We cannot fight them. Our people have forgotten how. Then who can? Ryan asked desperately. Morden turned to look at both humans. Perhaps the only species in the galaxy that never forgot how to fight. The species the Federation considers too dangerous to trust. Your people. Kate felt the weight of terrible responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity had been brought to this galaxy as students, expected to learn peace from their alien teachers. Instead, they might be the only ones capable of remembering lessons that the teachers had deliberately forgotten. We have to get word back to the human delegation, Kate said, and we have to do it before the Devourers realize that anyone knows they're awake. As their ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Kate looked back at the dead world shrinking behind them. Soon, she feared, there might be many more worlds just like it. Unless humanity could somehow remember how to be the warriors they had tried so hard to stop being. The galaxy's 50,000 years of peace were about to end, and only the species everyone considered too violent to trust might be able to save it. Admiral John Davis stood in the command center of the hastily converted Federation station, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. The news was worse than anyone had imagined. In just 2 weeks, the Devourers had consumed 47 worlds, and their advance was accelerating. "Admiral, we're getting another distress call from the Kepler sector," reported Chief Engineer Amy Parker. Her face was grim as she read the transmission. "The colony on Kepler 438b went silent 12 minutes ago. That's the 4th world today." John studied the tactical display showing Devourer movements. The pattern was clear and terrifying. They weren't just attacking randomly. They were systematically consuming the most populated worlds first, growing stronger with each victory. "Any response from the Federation fleet?" John asked. Tactical Officer Nick Thompson looked up from his station. "Sir, what's left of it is in full retreat. The Federation commanders are reporting that their crews refuse to fight. Many are having what they call cognitive breakdowns when faced with combat situations." John wasn't surprised. After 50,000 years of peace, the Federation species literally couldn't process the concept of warfare. Their minds had been changed too much. Their aggressive instincts bred out too completely. "What about our ships?" John asked. "The Earth Defense Fleet arrived yesterday," Amy reported. 37 vessels, mostly converted cargo ships and mining vessels. Not exactly a war fleet, but it's what we have." "And our new hybrid weapons?" Amy's expression brightened slightly. "The prototypes are ready for testing. We've managed to combine human tactical thinking with Federation energy technology. The weapons are more powerful than anything either of our species has built before." John nodded. It had been a desperate rush to develop new weapons in just 2 weeks, but humanity's warlike history had given them advantages the peaceful Federation lacked. Human engineers understood weapons in ways that Federation scientists couldn't even imagine. "Sir," Nick called out urgently, "we're receiving a transmission from the Federation Council. They want to speak with you immediately." John activated the communication system. The image of High Mediator Veltar appeared on the main screen. The ancient crystalline being was flickering with colors that John had learned indicated extreme distress. "Admiral Davis," Veltar said, his voice carrying harmonics of desperation. "We must discuss terms of surrender with the Devourers. Surely, some accommodation can be reached." John stared at the alien leader in disbelief. "High Mediator, you can't negotiate with the Devourers. They don't want territory or resources. They want to consume every living being in the galaxy. There must be some way to coexist peacefully," Veltar insisted. "Violence cannot be the only solution." "Sometimes it is," John replied firmly. "Sometimes you have to fight to protect what you care about." The communication ended abruptly. John realized with growing horror that the Federation leadership was so committed to their pacifist philosophy that they would rather be consumed than fight back. "Admiral," Amy called out, "we're getting reports of massive Devourer fleet movements. They're converging on the core worlds." John felt his stomach drop. The core worlds were home to over 2 billion Federation citizens. If the Devourers reached them, the war would be over. "How long do we have?" John asked. "Maybe 72 hours, Nick replied after checking his calculations. John made a decision that would have been impossible for any Federation leader. "Signal all human ships. We're going to intercept the Devourers at the Centauri Junction. If we can't stop them there, we'll at least slow them down." "Sir," Amy said quietly, "our 37 ships against their fleet of thousands? That's suicide." "Maybe," John admitted, "but somebody has to try." The human fleet met the Devourers at the Centauri Junction 18 hours later. John stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the enemy for the first time. The Devourer ships were nightmarish things that seemed to be made of living darkness, constantly shifting and growing as they consumed space debris and energy. "All ships, this is Admiral Davis," John broadcast to his small fleet. "Remember, we're not trying to win this battle. We're buying time for the evacuation of the core worlds. Make every shot count." The battle began with a coordinated human attack on the lead Devourer vessels. The new hybrid weapons proved effective, actually damaging ships that Federation weapons had barely scratched. But for every Devourer ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. John watched in horror as the Devourers demonstrated their true ability. When human ships were destroyed, the wreckage didn't just float in space. It was absorbed by the enemy, broken down and reformed into new Devourer vessels. Every loss made the enemy stronger. "Admiral, we're losing the UES Defender," reported Nick. "The Devourers they're taking it apart and rebuilding it." John realized they were fighting an enemy that could learn from every battle, that grew stronger with every victory. Traditional tactics were useless. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions," John ordered. "New plan. We're going to make them think we're weaker than we are." Over the next 6 hours, John implemented a strategy that would have been impossible for the peaceful Federation to understand. He deliberately sacrificed ships and allowed the Devourers to believe they were winning easily. But each sacrifice was carefully planned to gather intelligence about enemy capabilities. When the human fleet finally retreated, they had lost 23 ships. But they had learned something important. The Devourers were overconfident. They believed that nothing in the current galaxy could threaten them. Back at the command station, John met with his surviving officers. Amy looked exhausted, and Nick was staring at tactical displays with haunted eyes. "Sir, the core worlds have 12 hours at most," Nick reported. "The evacuation ships can't move fast enough." "What if we don't evacuate them?" John said quietly. Amy looked at him in shock. "Sir? What if we use the core worlds as bait? Let the Devourers think they're getting an easy victory, while we prepare something they won't expect." "What do you have in mind?" Nick asked. John pointed to the star maps. "The Devourers consume organic matter and energy. But what if we gave them something they couldn't digest? Something that would poison them from the inside?" Amy was beginning to understand. "A trap. But what kind of trap could affect beings that powerful?" "I don't know yet," John admitted, "but I know someone who might. We need to find the one species in the galaxy that understood the Devourers well enough to survive the First War. The species that created the Federation's peace in the first place," Nick realized. John nodded grimly. "We need to find the original warriors, the ones who fought the Devourers 50,000 years ago and lived to tell about it." As the Devourers closed in on the core worlds, John realized that humanity's greatest challenge wasn't just learning to fight this ancient enemy. It was learning to fight them in a way that their own ancestors had failed to discover. The galaxy's last hope lay not in the weapons of the present, but in the forgotten knowledge of the past, and time was running out to find it. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison stood before the largest gathering of ships in galactic history. Human vessels flew alongside Federation craft, their crews working together despite months of mistrust and fear. The final battle was about to begin, and Jake knew that everything depended on a plan that seemed impossible. "Admiral, we're receiving the signal from Dr. Carter's team," reported Commander Alex Torres from the tactical station. "They've reached the Devourer command cluster." Jake nodded grimly. Dr. Lisa Carter had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in galactic history. She and a small team were infiltrating the heart of Devourer space, carrying quantum disruptors that could potentially disrupt their collective consciousness. If the plan worked, it would give the combined fleet a chance to win. If it failed, she and her team would be consumed like so many others. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," Jake broadcast across the fleet. "Remember, this isn't about destroying the Devourers. It's about teaching them something they've never learned." The strategy was unlike anything ever attempted in galactic warfare. Instead of trying to defeat the Devourers through superior firepower, they were going to use psychological warfare. They were going to make the Devourers question their own purpose. "Admiral, Devourer fleets are approaching from all vectors," Torres reported. "Estimated arrival in 30 minutes. Jake looked at the tactical display showing thousands of enemy ships converging on their position. The Devourers had grown incredibly powerful, consuming entire sectors of the galaxy. But that growth had also made them predictable. They expected easy victory because they had never faced real resistance. "Signal the Federation vessels," Jake ordered. "Begin the deception protocol." Across the fleet, Federation ships began broadcasting fake distress signals and powering down their weapons. To the Devourers, it would look like the peaceful aliens were surrendering without a fight. just as they had done on dozens of other worlds. But hidden among the Federation vessels, human ships waited with their most advanced weapons ready. The TI plan required perfect timing and the kind of tactical deception that only a species with a long history of warfare could execute. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Devourer fleet," Torres reported. "They're trying to communicate." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The voice that filled the command center was unlike anything they had heard before. It was thousands of voices speaking as one, a collective consciousness that spanned entire star systems. "Galactic Deathworlders," the voice said, using the Federation's classification for humanity. "You thought you were apex predators. But tell us, when do you not have a war?" Jake realized this was the question the story's title had been building toward. The Devourers were asking how any species could consider themselves the ultimate fighters when they lived in a galaxy at peace. "You're wrong," Jake replied calmly. "We don't think we're apex predators because we always have wars. We know we're apex predators because we know when not to have them." There was silence from the Devourer fleet. Jake could sense their confusion. "We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves," Jake continued. "We make war so that others can have peace. That's what you never understood. True strength isn't about consuming everything you encounter. It's about choosing what to protect." "Impossible," the collective voice replied. "Strength comes from consumption. Growth comes from taking. We have consumed 1,000 galaxies." "And what did that teach you?" Jake asked. "What did you learn from all that consumption?" Again, silence. Jake pressed his advantage. "You consume civilizations, but you never understand them. You take their knowledge, but you never gain their wisdom. You grow larger, but you never grow wiser." On the tactical display, Jake could see the Devourers hesitating. Their ships had stopped advancing, as if the collective consciousness was struggling with concepts it had never considered. "Admiral," Torres whispered, "Dr. Carter's team is in position. They're ready to activate the quantum disruptors." "Not yet," Jake replied. "We need them to understand first." Jake opened a communication channel to the entire Devourer collective. "Let me show you what you've been missing." With that signal, the human fleet revealed itself. But instead of attacking, they began broadcasting something unprecedented: the complete history of human warfare, from the earliest tribal conflicts to the latest peacekeeping missions. The Devourers watched as humans fought each other, then learned to fight together. They saw wars that destroyed nations and wars that saved them. They witnessed humanity's greatest failures and greatest triumphs, all connected by a single thread: the gradual understanding that war was not an end in itself, but a tool for protecting what mattered. "You see," Jake explained as the historical records played, "we didn't stop being warriors when we joined the galaxy. We became better warriors. We learned that the strongest fighter is the one who only fights when necessary." The Devourer collective was silent for long minutes. When they finally spoke, their voice was different, uncertain. "We do not understand. If fighting is not for consumption, then why fight at all?" "To protect those we love," Jake replied simply. "To preserve what is beautiful in the universe. To ensure that others can live in peace. But if we do not consume, we do not grow." "Growth isn't about size," Jake said. "It's about understanding. It's about becoming more than you were." Dr. Carter's voice came through on a secure channel. "Admiral, the quantum disruptors are active. The Devourer collective consciousness is fragmenting. Individual ships are beginning to act independently." Jake could see it on the tactical display. The massive Devourer fleet was breaking apart as individual ships began to question their collective purpose. "This is our chance," Torres said urgently. "No," Jake replied. "This is their chance." Instead of attacking the confused Devourer ships, Jake opened communications again. "You have a choice," he told them. "You can continue consuming until there's nothing left in the universe, or you can learn what we learned. You can become protectors instead of destroyers." One by one, Devourer ships began to respond. Not with the collective voice of the swarm, but with individual voices expressing thoughts they had never been allowed to have. "How do we protect?" asked one. What do we guard? Asked another. Who will teach us? Asked a third. Jake smiled. We will. But first, you have to choose to learn. The transformation wasn't instant. It took months of careful work, with human teachers working alongside reformed devourers to restructure their society. The collective consciousness was broken down into individual minds, each capable of independent thought and choice. Some devourers chose to remain as they were and departed for distant galaxies, but many chose to stay and learn. They became the galaxy's protectors, using their vast power to defend against threats from beyond known space. The Federation learned as well. They began to understand that peace without the strength to defend it was just an invitation for disaster. They started training defense forces and developing new technologies for protection rather than consumption. Jake stood on the observation deck of New Geneva 1 year later, watching human and Federation children playing together in the gardens below. Among them were young devourers, learning through play what their species had forgotten through conquest. Dr. Carter joined him at the window. Do you think it will last? She asked. Jake considered the question. As long as we remember that the strongest warrior is the one who chooses not to fight, unless fighting is the only way to protect what matters. In the end, humanity had saved the galaxy not by being the best warriors, but by teaching others that true strength came from knowing when not to use it. They had answered the Devourer's question about when not to have a war with the most human answer of all, when there was something more important than winning to fight for.